Okay, so we need to have a short little chatteroony about some garbage that I just found out. And this is because I was trying to finally get the energy up to stream, to create some YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, a lot of what we do is reacting to video game trailers, and we just got done largely with non-E3, right? We just got done with Key 3 or Summer Game Fest or whatever you want to call it. E3 is completely dead, and it's been dead for about 4 years now. And in the space that it left has been Summer Game Fest as the large main showcase. But after Nintendo Directs got popular, everything else, every other company just started just being like, oh, we'll just do the Nintendo Direct style. We'll just do a Nintendo Direct. We got PlayStation State of Play. We got Ubisoft Forward. We got the Xbox Showcase. We got whatever, right? Like, insert whatever you want and then just turn it into a pre-recorded cavalcade of trailers. And I was like, okay, I need to see what has been announced in that time. In this year's non-E3 window. And so I went to go collate all that together because I was like, I should probably watch most, if not all of those, so that I can be aware of what's going on and what announcements are coming through and yada, 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 right? Well, so I started trying to figure out how many goddamn showcases existed in the last 30 days. And there's this really, really incredible website, and if I remember, I'll put a link down below for it. It's called gamesrecap.io. Really, really helpful. However, it also helped me highlight a massive, significant problem that exists with the current gaming landscape, the current way that we develop, market, and sell games. Because in the last 30 days, in the last 30 days, there have been 28, yep, yeah, sweet, I can hold up the right number of fingers, 28 showcases, whether that's, like I said, the Nintendo Directs or the Future Game Show or the Future of Play Show, because those are different. We got the Wholesome Direct, we got, Black Voices in Gaming, we got the freaking Accessibility Showcase, and some of these are good, they serve a purpose, right? Things like, I think it's Dames for Games is another one. There's also Latin American Developers Showcase or something like that. They all have a purpose. But here's the problem. There are 28 of them that happened in a 30-day period. 28! Now, on top of there being 28, real quick, I want you to just put a number in your head of how many hours you think 28 showcases totals up to. Just whatever the first number that came to mind. You're like, I don't know, maybe if they're 30 minutes on average a piece. No, they're probably an hour a piece at most. Maybe, I don't know, some are 20 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you think the total number of hours is, just put that in your head. It's 45 hours. It is 45 hours of non-stop showcase bullshit. Now for the little sprinkling cream on top, the little sugar that you put on that glazes it all over. I want you to take a guess at how many game trailers were aired over 45 hours and 28 showcases. How many game trailers do you think there were? Just put that number in your head. I'll give you a moment. If you want to do some mental math of I don't know, a trailer's probably a minute or two a piece, and there's 45 hours, so that's 60 minutes, but they always talk just a little bit of in between of there, 827. 827 game trailers across 45 hours and 28 showcases. Can you imagine being a game developer today and hoping that you get sales? I mean, it'd be a miracle, right? Hang on, how many games on the Nintendo 64? The Nintendo 64 total total had 388 games. Now, mind you, that was an older system, you know, but the entire console, the whole thing, 388 games. How many games were on the fucking PS3? How many games are on the PS3? Okay, that's more of a realistic number to what we would think, you know. PS2 had 4,376. So PS2, probably one of the largest libraries, right? Because everyone wanted to develop a game on the PlayStation 2. There was, what is that, 20%? Roughly 20% of the entirety of the PlayStation 2's entire library was announced, shown off, given a trailer in the last 30 days. And the PlayStation 2 lived for freaking ever. It was like a 10-year long lifespan, right? Can you imagine hoping that you can develop a game today and make any type of success on it? That's why marketing is so important, because you are paying literally to cut through the noise. That's the whole point of any of your marketing at this point, because it was more than that, because the PS2 lived for quite a while, even after the PS3 came out. And I can't even fathom it. And I know part of it is because game development has become so widely accessible at this point. Like, you got things like Unity and Godot that are just free engines. Unreal Engine is free for until you start to make like actual amounts of money, right? So like practically anyone can make a game now. You got RPG Maker as well that's out there. I'm sure there's other engines that I haven't heard of that people are using to make games. And on top of that, you have the infinite knowledge of the internet to help you make your game. Like, a lot of the tools and things that you'd be looking to learn, they're like, I don't know how to do this in a video game. You can probably just go to YouTube and type it in, and someone will give you an idea of at least how to get started doing that thing. And that's fantastic. That is great. I love that. That's freedom of creativity. But oh my God, 827 trailers is insane. And that's just what was at these showcases, right? Like, that was just what was in the caravan of cavalcade reveals across the last month, right? There could have very, very easily been trailers that didn't get put into any of those systems, that didn't get aired at Summer Game Fest or the Future of Play Direct, or, you know, the Devolver Digital Direct or whatever, right? Like, there's probably, I guarantee you there was trailers that were just uploaded onto YouTube, blasted on social media, and given a prayer, right? And sure, maybe there's some games that were announced at more than one showcase. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, this publisher paid to have an ad placed at the PlayStation State of Play and Summer Game Fest and the Future Game Show, because they're just really throwing those marketing dollars down to try and, like I said, cut through the noise. But there can't be that many of those. There can't be that many that were in multiple showcases. So what, 800, 750 if you want to really like go on the high end? How are you, not even as a game developer, how are you supposed to get noticed, but as a gamer, as a consumer, how can you hope to be aware of what's coming out? How can you decide? Like, my backlog is huge, and there's so much coming out. Also, to the people that like, there's no games coming out, shut up. You're just wrong. You're unequivocally wrong. Sure, there's not a new Spider-Man or Call of Duty or God of War coming out, you know, every couple of months, but dang, I think you'll find a total of 5 games that hit like 3 of those events. Yeah, probably, you know, like maybe 2. I could see some games hitting 2 of those events. But here's the other problem with this, is that after this video, we're gonna go watch some of those showcases, because I haven't had a chance to watch them because I've been so busy and tired from life and work and family and stuff like that, that we're gonna go watch some of these, and I had to like pick the ones that I was most interested in. On top of that, we're gonna go watch some of them, and the problem that we're gonna run into is I'm gonna be like, oh, that game was cool, and it's gone, and I will forget. Because I'm gonna see game 7 of 44 and think that game 7 was cool, and then struggle to remember that game 3 hours later when I have been shown 30 plus other games. Like, E3 was far from perfect, very far from perfect. But one thing that E3 did really well, and it wasn't the cringy presentations, it wasn't devs flopping all over themselves or anything like that. It was that what was shown off at E3, you actually got time to absorb. Because that's one of the biggest problems, especially with things like the Nintendo Direct and the Direct style, is that it's like minute 30 trailer. Here's 90 seconds of this game. Here's 15 seconds for us to introduce the next game, 90 seconds of that game, and go, 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 go. And it makes it so easy to just forget. We're just being bombarded, just endlessly thrown marketing, media, just advertisements the whole time. And it's so difficult to parse what you're actually interested in because there's just so much. There's 827 trailers, dog. 827. How are you supposed to even cut? That's more games than most people will probably play in their entire lifetime. Honestly. Now, mind you, not every game is for everybody, but we're probably beyond critical mass when it comes to games, right? Like, it's such an insane cycle right now. And that's also, you know, probably why we're starting to see so many studio closures and why expectations are really high out of the publishers and stuff. And I'm not saying that it's fine for layoffs to happen, but it's also why, you know, like even indie games, you know, people will be like, oh, you know, it sucks that all of these big AAA developers are just firing a whole bunch of different, you know, staff members, and you're seeing 10-15% cuts of staff. This company laid off 500 people. This studio's closed entirely. But what you don't hear about is the unknown number of indie developers that just softly whimper themselves back into the shadows and die quietly over the weekend. Because there's no way, with 827 trailers, how many of those games do you think are going to be successful? 25? 50? Maybe? We'll go big. 10% of those games will be successful enough that they can support the studio to try to make another game, which means that you get 82 games that are successes enough to survive the studio to go on to the next one, which means that there are going to be 740 flops out of what's been just shoveled out. Which is insanity. It's absolute insanity. So, yeah. E3 was like a pre-filtering. And if you go looking for devs, you know, you go looking for devs, you know, you probably won't ever find stuff outside of your comfort zone. It's true. Now, if we were to count board games, I would say the average person plays maybe 3 to 6 games in their lifespan. I mean, that depends on what your childhood was like. I think a whole lot, I would like to believe that a whole lot of people played, like, you know, all of the standard ones when they were young. You know, at some point you were shoved in a classroom and you had to play Sorry, and then the next week they busted out Monopoly, and then the Game of Life, and then, you know, somebody busted out Phase 10 and Uno, and, you know, Chutes and Ladders, and yeah. What you're describing actually isn't too different from the pre-streaming film industry. I believe it. I 100% believe it. But I think one of the big differences now is the internet, is YouTube, is online marketing and stuff like that. And with that, it completely changes what we see. It's kind of like when people talk about the news cycle. They're like, oh, the news, there's nothing but bad news. The news, it's all terrible. Crime is at an all-time high. The world is awful. It's getting worse. Everything is just absolutely barbaric. There's people just ransacking the streets, and it's like, that's not actually true. Like, statistically, in practically every location that you look, crime is trending down. But because of it, but it used to be that you could only get your news via like the newspaper and the radio, and then we got television, and then now we get internet. And so there is just an endless stream of information that's always available to you. So it's not that the bad stuff wasn't happening before, it is that you didn't see it. And like you've just said, bad news is what largely sells. Drama is what largely sells, which is very, very true. And so, you know, it really skews your perspective on things. Also, you know, you get news outside of your local area now. Like, you would get some level of national news, but you never really got world level news. Like all the stuff that happened in Hong Kong a few years back, or the stuff that's happening in Ukraine, or, you know, just like pick stuff that's happening in Lebanon or Syria, or pick your location, right? We might have heard that on like it might have reached a paper. Maybe you might have seen it on one of the larger news stations, but otherwise you weren't really given that information. And now it's just like you can have all of the information whenever you want it. And because it's such a market now, everyone is peddling you that information. And so, you know, when we talk about the number of games that were on like PlayStation 2, there's a shitload of them that flopped. There's a shitload of games on the very narrow 366 or whatever games on the Nintendo 64 that were utterly terrible, that were absolute trash. Like, go play Quest 64 and ask yourself how that game got approved, okay? And we see, and all of those numbers are just bigger now. So it was even true back then, you know, a lot of times back then we were desperately trying to get our news through Superman 64. Oh shit. Back then we were desperately trying to get our news through things like Nintendo Power and Game Informer. And, you know, if you had access to it, like G4 TV or whatever. But otherwise you had like E3 and magazines and maybe looking at what was on the screen at GameStop or whatever, right? But most movies were at a loss in theaters. Jurassic Park or whatever would make the actual money. Then hopefully VHS, DVD brings in the difference. Yeah, or toys. Yeah, toys was also a big thing as well. That was where most of the money is. That's where, like, you know, George Lucas with Star Wars and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just, like, frustrating because I put in the work to get all of the showcases so I could see them. And as I was building the list, I was like, this is getting bigger and bigger. And then I was like, I got to put the time so that I can plan for how to watch any of this, let alone all of it. And then at the end of it, I was like, holy shit, it's literally 45 hours and 800 trailers. That's insane. I don't know what the answer to that is. And I mean, there's some indie games that I have found through Twitter that I am super excited about, right? Like that I am looking forward to immensely. And the problem is though, even though I'm like, which ones are all the ones that I'm looking to? The Time I Have Left is one. iCode is another one. Hollow Body, Rune Fencer Ilya, there's more, but again, like, and these are like hyper indie projects. What's the symphony one where you fight with music? Dang, I don't remember. See, exactly, the Sword of Symphony, something like that. But yeah, it's to anyone that is getting into game development or is currently in game development, I wish you the best of luck, truly. Because this market would be utterly terrifying right now. Because, like, you know, before, like in those like in the Nintendo 64 days, where there was 366 games total, like, there legitimately is a world where you were the only game that released that week, you know? And in those circumstances, like, the number of people that could, like, hell, I remember doing it. I'd go to GameStop and be like, I don't know what this is. And you'd make a decision based off the box art and what, if any, information was on the back. And sometimes you ended up with shit games. And sometimes you ended up with, like, a pretty cool game. And that's also how you get, like, cult classics, because, you know, there was games that weren't marketed that ended up being really cool and people passed them around and talked about them and stuff like that. And that was cool. But today, when everything is just immediately available, yeah, God, it's so much harder. So getting shit games is something missing from the culture. It's, yeah, I mean, it changes people's perspective on quality. So I don't know. That's where my thoughts conclude on it, but I definitely wanted to talk about it a little bit because when I saw those numbers and I did that math, I was just like baffled. Because one, as a consumer, there's no way that I can digest that meaningfully. And as a developer, as a business, that would be just utterly horrifying to me. But let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to hear from you. Put your thoughts down in the comments below. Catch up with us on social media. We come in all flavors of social media. We got a Threads, we got a Blue Sky, we got a Twitter, we got a Cara now, C-A-R-A, as long as that app survives, we'll see. So yeah, pick your poison and go find us on social media or join us on the live stream. This video is obviously recorded live, and I would love to see you there. And if you do watch one of the other videos on the channel, or if I see you in the live stream, thank you and enjoy.